Well, hello, everyone. This is John Bernard, Poets and Quants. Welcome to our Center Court session on Duke University's Fuqua School of Business. We're going to focus on the daytime MBA program. And to discuss it, we have two fantastic people here, including a current second-year student, Jen Seibel, and the Associate Dean of the Daytime MBA program, who I'm sure you're going to enjoy, Steve Mizoraki. Steve and Jen, welcome.
Great to be here.
Thank you.
So Steve, let's begin with you and give us a general sense of what the Daytime MBA program is like, its structure, concentrations, the features that you think make it stand out.
Well, John, thanks so much. And we have, 15 hours to talk through this today, right? Is that the plan? So if you're listening to this, wherever you are, I hope this finds you well, and I hope this is helpful. And clearly drink the Kool-Aid, and really excited to share this time with Jen and you all, and can help you in any way, whether it's a visit to the school or as you come through our admissions team. Just really, really love this place. So, the way that our program is structured is fairly unique. We actually start earlier than most programs. We bring our students in August as a first-year class and have an actual summer term, and it's a new term. We've actually changed the curriculum fairly recently on this, but sort of the theme at Fuqua is partnership, and that kickoff helps with our second years who come back from orientation to help kind of lead that experience in the middle of their internships and lift the incoming class. But then we spend the entire summer just with the first year class. They'll take 3 courses that are kind of core and central, and then we're in these 6-week terms. They go by really, really quickly, and you'll have your core really for the first half of your first year, where you're getting exposure to your core finance classes, strategy, marketing, or whatnot. But we're really proud of the new core classes that we front loaded in the summer term. As our dean has went out and talked with stakeholders across the world, whether it's our board, whether it's corporate partners, whether it's our alumni. And we had the pleasure right before COVID of speaking with our students about what matters, what is relevant. These themes of entrepreneurship, of the intersection of humans and technology, and this idea that, and I know you're all feeling this world that we're living is incredibly polarized right now. Like, how do we agree on anything? And then as leaders, if that's what Fuqua is supposed to do, and if that's what business school is supposed to do, is to graduate the leaders the world needs, how do we operate in this world of polarization? And so we've actually structured our core classes now to overlap with those. So in the summer term, you'll take a class on leadership, ethics, and organizations. You'll take a class on the intersection of humans and technology. You'll take a class called the Entrepreneurial Mindset in Action, which sort of prepares students to be adaptive for their careers. And we've added a new bookend core class at the end of your first year, Business and Common Purpose, which is around that theme of polarization. So I'm talking quickly, and I know I'm excited about this because I don't want to overview the entire curriculum, but we have this core where students that have experience or exposure can actually exempt out. But you'll take that core with your section, a group of around 70 students, 6 different sections at Fuqua. And then what's crazy about the rest of Fuqua is it's a choose your own adventure, right? So you get through the core halfway through your first year. So right now our first years, like our second years, are now taking electives. And so the one benefit of taking a core, you get that depth really early and really quickly. It's really fast paced. And then you move into the breadth. And so our students right now are making decisions about how they want to structure their academic journey. And concentration certificates are a great way to do that. We have a world-class health sector management program that I would say is our most popular certificate these days. And then concentration, students can put up to 2 on their record, but many kind of take a nice, a nice mixture of a lot of the different courses. And we can talk a little bit about that if we want to, about how students make those choices and the resources there. But essentially now students are either experimenting in places that they may not have exposure, or they might be doubling down on their passions. But our faculty have intentionally designed the Fuqua curriculum to really maximize flexibility. And so I'll cut off kind of the general structure here in terms of what it looks like when you come. It's kind of your first year, you mix between core and elective, you go have an incredible internship, and then you leverage that internship in your second year, and hopefully you're on the path to pursuing your dreams.
Steve, what was behind the recent update in the early start in the program?
Well, so we've had, I was a student 15 years ago, and we've had the early start of the program for a long time. But it's the reshaping of not only just the academic courses, but the experiential courses has been really intentional. And so, the bet there is at Fuqua, we believe in family. You hear Team Fuqua, I like the phrase Fuqua family. Like, that's certainly a decision I've made. Again, these are not backdrops. These are my family and pictures of Duke and Fuqua. This is the real deal here. it's just how do we bring in that family earlier and get them connected? Business school is not just a transaction. John, I've heard a ton of your interviews over time, and the best schools recognize that it really has to be a transformational journey, and that's the courses you take, the people you interact with, it's the staff members and the faculty members you get to know, and then most importantly, it's your fellow peers. And so we bring in that first year class early, and we help them get their routines. Many of our students, or many business school students in general, haven't taken a class in 10, 15 years. So we kind of dip their toe back into the academic journey as they sort of build cohort and in pride of belonging. And so if you look at our 25 randoms thing essay and admissions, this idea of belonging is really central to Fuqua, and we want to create that space for our students to belong. And then academically, we got to have classes that are relevant. And so we're now in our third year or third iteration of this kind of new curriculum and getting really, really good feedback, continuing to iterate. And then within that academic curriculum, we have a lot of co-curricular offerings to help make sure that our students belong. Me and my partner, my teammate, my colleague, Stephanie Robertson, our dean of community engagement, we lead in an intersectionality workshop for all incoming students. We take our students out to the forest, and they do a high ropes course. We give back to Durham, and every student that comes to Fuqua will help as part of a day in the summer term, as part of our consequential leadership experience. We'll help build a house for Habitat for Humanity. We bring leadership in Durham to Fuqua to talk about what that intersection looks like. And so we cram a lot in that summer term. But back to what I said to start, it's about kind of your introduction to your family. And so we're trying to bring in as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm going to step back and just also add another point to this. By front loading the core and allowing people to take deep electives in your first year, it helps students show up for their internship ready to impress. And that's really a very consequential and intentional part of the design of your program for sure. Because you want to show up at a consulting shop or a finance shop or in a consumer products job or a tech job and immediately be able to contribute as an intern, so you can convert that internship into a full-time job offer. And that curriculum design helps you do that. Jen, tell us a little bit about why you decided to get an MBA and why you ultimately picked Fuqua.
Sure. So why did I decide to get an MBA? I was in food and beverage for about 10 years prior to deciding to go through with the application process. And I kind of hit a bit of a ceiling. I was in a company that I was a general manager of a food service unit down in Miami, Florida. And I was sort of kind of looking ahead at what my career path was there. And there weren't a lot of options to grow. It wasn't kind of a fast growing company. So I kind of was really looking at my options and really having some deep reflections on, okay, where do I want to be in 10 years, 5 years? Do I want to stay in F&B? Do I want to grow in another capacity? And so all of those questions led to, yes, I want to switch. And then the question became how? So took a look at all of the MBA programs. And then second part of your question, why Fuqua? And Steve touched on this a little bit before, but with, I suppose, my prior experience, I had been trained very kind of technically and not very focused on empathy, and not very focused on sort of the people aspect of it. And I knew that was a skill that was going to be important in my future. And so I was really looking at programs that focused on student leadership, focused on opportunities. I'm a practice girl, so I love practice and iteration and repetition and being able to sort of try things and then kind of shift and learn and grow in that way. And so all of those sort of personal factors that I was looking for really led me to Fuqua as one of the programs I wanted to be part of.
And did you arrive on campus knowing you wanted to do a career switch?
I did. Yeah. I did. And so part of that was also looking at job reports, right? So a lot of the schools, the MBA programs out there do publish those job reports of where the current class is graduating and then going to afterwards. So that was a really big driver as well. At Fuqua, it's mostly tech, consulting, and then finance. So banking.
Right. And we should point out that you earned an internship at Amazon.
We did.
Came back in your second year with a job offer in your pocket, and you will be working for Amazon in Seattle when you graduate in a few months.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And almost to build on one of your points before, John, about the elective process, right? And having that opportunity to dive into some classes and prep for an internship, which I absolutely did take advantage of. I took a couple finance courses as an elective before I went in, but I also used some of those electives to sort of prep me for perhaps that re-recruiting journey and whether I wanted to or not. So we have an experiential course called the FCCP, which Steve, maybe you can help me on what that acronym stands for.
Client Consulting Practicum.
So it was essentially like a little mini training course as a consultant. We worked with a team of 4 and we got a project or a question from a company. And we worked on that question throughout the 6 weeks, or I'm sorry, 12 weeks. The program's 12 weeks, meeting with the client periodically along the way, and came to the conclusion myself that client work isn't for me. So it almost helped me tick maybe an option off going into my second year of whether I wanted to re-recruit into consulting. So.
No, that's great. And I should point out that Jen is doing what we call the triple jump. You are changing industry, function, and geography all in one big leap.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, and to me, it speaks to the value of an MBA and how you can literally reinvent your professional self by getting a degree from a great school like Fuqua. Steve, how typical or untypical is Jen's story?
You know, I think increasingly, having seen generations come through, John, and to be frank, I wish that we could keep Jen here forever. So like, I'm not super thrilled that she's leaving to go to Seattle, because her and her co-president have been absolutely amazing at Fuqua, and you know, it's just an honor to share in their lives. I think atypical is becoming typical. I think increasingly we're seeing an ambitious generation of individuals that have recognized that life is precious. There's a vulnerability that has existed because of what we've all collectively been through in the last couple of years, and they want to invest in themselves. And, you know, in the education of business school, the skill learning in the classes, the opportunity to explore, the opportunity to fail, the peer networks that you develop, the opportunity to reinvent yourself is becoming increasingly relevant. And so, you know, one of the interesting things I'm not part of our career services team. I'm really kind of on the front lines in terms of working with our Office of Student Life, our international programs office, and our registrars. But one of the things our career service team has sort of been reflecting on is where we're at right now with the uncertainty in the world versus kind of where we're at maybe a decade and a half ago is, you know, there's not as much exposure given where things are at right now, because our students want to go to many different things, right? So maybe a decade and a half ago, there may be 3 or 4 common verticals that students are really, really interested in. Then you had kind of the folks that are kind of on their own, where now I really feel like that has shifted, you know, and so folks are much more nuanced. And you know, even things like tech, which has become this huge broad category. Like we've seen around us that tech is, you know, you look at the newspaper, you look online. Now, no one reads a newspaper anymore. You look online and you see these articles about tech jobs leaving. Well, they're leaving traditional tech firms, but every firm is a tech firm because technology is the intersection of everything we do. And so, you know, I would say Jen's story is unique because it's Jen and she's amazing. But the idea of folks that might look, and I love, John, that you phrased this idea of triple jump. That feels like, and I don't have the data in front of me to suggest, it feels like that is becoming more of the norm.
Yeah. Now, Jen, when you decided to get an MBA, did anyone try to convince you not to get one?
Yeah. So I think, just a bit of background. So I come from a first generation family. So my parents didn't at the time have college degrees. And so this idea of sort of graduate school, particularly for something like business, which a lot of time has, you know, maybe some more emphasis on street credit, or like, you know, just go out there and get that experience rather than maybe some of that academic or theoretical knowledge. So yeah, my parents were totally like, what are you doing that for? And I'm like, well, take a look at this job report, you know, and this is the return that you can get, some of these factual things that are on paper, but then also saying, okay, well, you know, I want to go and just learn from an institution with these professors that are really just experts in their field and are on the cutting edge of learning new things and running experience, learning about people and businesses out there. And so why not? So yeah, but and talking about maybe people who are trying to dissuade me, one person that was particularly and continues to be supportive. I do have a husband. He's down in Miami. He's still working, so we're taking some time apart, and he has been so incredibly supportive through this journey. I'm very grateful for him as well.
That's really good. What was the learning experience like? What were any surprises that you had in the first year? And I'm sure that despite your parents' concern, your education wasn't all that theoretical.
No, very true. And Steve touched on this a little bit. It had been a long time since I was in the classroom. And I thought that, it would be kind of an easy jump to go back in, especially, you're 10 years in the workforce, you're facing a lot of challenges, on a daily basis, but school's a different kind of challenge. It's getting back into reading a lot, just like a lot, reading your case studies and being on top of all your schoolwork. And then on top of that, there's additional resources and additional materials that you're like, oh, I really want to get to that, but I have to, prioritize my time. And I didn't think that it was going to be as much of a juggling game that it is, right? They call it, they talk about the trifecta. You have the academics, you have the social side, and then you also have the extracurricular side, and which all, tend to take up a fair amount of your schedule. So just being able to prioritize and sort of ebb and flow between those three factors as you move through the 2 years too is important.
Yeah, totally. Leaving your husband in Miami probably allowed you to have a lot more time to focus on the program, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, I'm sure.
Yeah, just a wee bit, I think, but I guess we'll never know.
Yeah. Steve, when you think of the MBA program and how it's evolved over the years, what do you think are the hallmarks of a Fuqua experience? You mentioned, and I'll use your words, Kool-Aid. And if there is Kool-Aid, it comes in a bottle with the tag Team Fuqua. We know that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the one thing that really has not changed since I was a student, 15 years ago. And what I would say is really kind of the hallmark of our experience is I think that you find students that self-select in to be part of a school where there's this reliance on being part of teams academically. Certainly, every student that comes to Fuqua will be placed on a consequential learning team that you both navigate, but are also mentored as part of the experience. And then you go ahead and you return that favor as a second year. So that partnership, reciprocity is something that's always been really unique. We're blessed. I've had the privilege of talking to my unbelievable peers at other institutions, some of the most decent, incredible people I've ever met. But we're really blessed that we're able to bring our students back, even as a coder in their second year, to launch their experience. We have a consequential leadership program for second years that is a required core class where we don't just sort of co-curricularly have that model, but we have a course that sort of is like, how do we set up the culture within our school? And that's never been an evolution. That's been a constant. What I think has been a challenge is there's just so much noise that is in the world. And this idea of being busy, and Jen actually alluded to this quite a bit, as you adjust academically and you adjust socially and you adjust from a career standpoint. And there's no question, Jen, I've heard some of your interviews where you talk about increasingly, companies want to start that recruiting earlier and earlier in the season, and just what a challenge that is for our students. What I think Fuqua does really, really well, and there is a cost sometimes to this, but I think we do really, really well. And I've heard our Dean, Bill Boulding, talk about this, is we teach you how to think about what is your true north. What are your non-negotiables in terms of your values, in terms of how you think about that time. We do it through some reflection in these classes, the consequential leadership classes. You write a personal development plan. You think about what that looks like. And then we really test you because you can't do it all. And so what I guarantee you is, as challenging as business school is, life doesn't get any easier after you leave. As you start to introduce all these other things, and the stakes are much higher. And the thing that I think that Fuqua does incredibly well is it teaches you to develop the habits you need to be successful in life, about balance, about, business is a force for good. Like, hopefully every Fuqua graduate, and our dean talks about this all the time, is taking what they learn in this program and going and applying that and making an impact on where they're at. This idea that a good team always beats an individual. That is non-negotiable at Fuqua. And then I get goosebumps as I think about this. Again, I really drink the Kool-Aid on this one, but Our dean talks about the triple threat leadership capability. You can't just be smart, IQ. You can't just be, emotionally intelligent, EQ, but you gotta have this third leg, this third pillar called decency, DQ, IQ, EQ, and DQ. And when you think about it, it's actually pretty simple, not just in school, those folks in your life that have all of those elements, just how much they can amplify those around them. And I think, I'm really proud to be part of an institution that's part of our values. I love, again, that we ask, I think, the hardest essay question in the business, the 25 randoms thing essay. You can't copy and paste that essay, John. Like, you got to work on that one independently for Fuqua. And it really does help our teams.
It's also one of the best admission questions in the business school world. Okay?
Yeah.
The best.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And it becomes part of our culture. It's how we introduce ourselves in our Blue Devil weekends and when our students come here. It really is. It's how do we go below the surface and truly get to know the authentic individual? And so I think that authenticity is something I'm really proud that Fuqua is a part of. Like, the idea of authenticity and vulnerability were not part of my business vocabulary 5 years ago. But between the inclusion work, what we've done in terms of the belonging work we've done in terms of the way that we select students, it really has changed. I'm really proud of that.
Steve, you're checking every box and reaffirming every belief that I have in the Fuqua experience, because more than any other school, and I get around, all schools talk about teamwork, but no school in the world makes it so crystal clear that a team of people will always come up with a better solution than a single individual. No school in the world other than Fuqua. Secondly, your formulation from Dean Boulding about the 3 different levels of intelligence is something I've heard not articulated anywhere else. And finally, his notion that we live in a polarized society and we need to teach people how to work in a highly conflicted environment where everyone may not be on the same page. These are all 3 things that I think are brilliant, and they're really a core part of the DNA of the school. And I love the fact that you brought them up, because that's when I think of Fuqua, that's what I think of. Now, Jen, one of the things that I love to do when I visit a campus is to go out to a bar late in the evening with MBA students, to have a glass of wine or a glass of beer with them and to ask them this question. Long after you graduate, what are the 3 things about your MBA experience that will endure, that will resonate with you for a lifetime? What do you think the 3 things are for you, Jen?
Oh, well, I definitely think the relationships, the people that I've met here, and the impact that they've had in my growth, and the memories that, the fun that we've had together and the trips that we've took together, the energy. Steve mentioned orientation, both as a first year and then going back as a second year, was so much fun. Like, it was going to camp. It was like going to camp and then just being so excited. The vibe was.
And how was that tug of war? Were you on the winning side or the losing side?
We didn't do tug of war. We didn't do tug of war this year. I know. But, we do section cheers. As Steve mentioned, there's 6 sections, the 7th one actually being partners, but they're not at orientation yet. But so, just seeing these group of individuals who just met and come up with a cheer for their section just really instills a sense of camaraderie and team and everything that, starts everything out on the right foot. And then another hallmark, I think, would be some of the classes that I've taken. There's 2 that stick out particularly in my head that I really think will end up changing the trajectory of my future and perhaps some of the decisions that I'm going to make moving forward.
What 2 are they?
So the 2 courses are, the first one was Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition, or ETA. I know it's been around Stanford for a while, but it was something that before school I had never heard about before. And I'd love to be able to take advantage of it. Maybe not right away, but definitely in the future. And then the second one is Real Estate Entrepreneurship, which I'm taking currently. Actually signed up for it on Steve's advice. And that's just taking us through both some practical knowledge on residential properties and how to perhaps grow wealth through residential. And then also the second half of the course is focused more on commercial.
Yeah. That's
John,
great.
can I give Jen a quick bump on something real quick that I want to follow up on the beer wine question? One of the most humble people I've met, but when you think about it, one of the hallmarks of Fuqua is the trust that we give our students in the leadership lab our students have. And Jen and her teammates have really had to think through how do we retain and build on the culture that we've relied on so many years that was disrupted by COVID. And so you think about all the student clubs and all the activities and all the feelings of belonging. Like her group has had to essentially re-energize that after a couple years of that being really, really impacted, not being able to do those things. And so, when you think about not what she's taking from the Fuqua experience, which I hope he values, but what she has left that will impact generations of Fuqua, it's helping us get back to that and re-enhancing that in a new world. And it's something I'll never forget. In all those of us that have come before and that will come after will benefit from her restoring of, like, Fuqua Friday was not an easy thing to do for a couple of years, and the fact that is something that is her and her team have sort of rebuilt with the group that came before them is just really special. And it's never been harder to do that in a place like Fuqua because we're playing defense for so long. How do you get back to offense? And Jen and her team have been fantastic in doing that.
Thank you, Steve.
Explain Fuqua Friday.
Jen, go for it.
Yeah, so Fuqua Friday is kind of like our capstone to the week. So we, every Friday, starting around 4, we invite all of our classmates to come to the Kirby Winter Garden, which is like almost like our big cafeteria type of situation. And we just have drinks. We usually have a little bit of food and we just catch up right before we head into the weekend. Sort of, if you will, like a happy hour as you would at work. So it's just a really nice time to catch up with maybe people you're not taking classes with, some professors, PhD students, students from the other programs all show up, and we just kind of hang out.
That's great. That's really great. And that's a real bonding experience as well, of course. And probably there are a lot of weekend plans that get set in those Friday afternoons among the students.
Yes, or they kick off with Fuqua Friday.
Right. Now, Steve, what's your advice to someone who wants to get an MBA? And, a lot of people talk about fit, and fit is such an intangible thing, but how do you know if you fit with the Fuqua program?
Yeah, great question. And, the obvious answer here is that it starts with yourself. Like, do a lot of internal reflection. What is your true north? What brings you joy? What brings you happiness? And write it down. And so here's a piece of advice I would give. Write those down individually. And then start to think about what are the criteria that matter most to you as you start the experience of looking at a school. And that can be anything from, reputation. There's different ways that you could do that. You could say, like, the best interviews I've heard in poets and quants could be an interesting criteria you could use in terms of whether or not, whatever reputation means to you. There's rankings that are out there. There's all sorts of things you could think about. You could, reputation of faculty, course offerings. Like Jen said, the employment reports, those are out there. Go do those things. I would recommend Excel spreadsheet. I did this. I imagine a lot of students do, but write it down. Every visit is a prospective student that hasn't yet been admitted. Start to sort of rank the schools that you're looking at comparatively on those metrics that look for you. Okay, do that as a first-time visitor, and I recommend trying to visit any school that is really interesting for you because it's not just a 2-year school experience, it's a family for a lifetime. And so it's probably worth a visit if you can make that happen to a set of schools. And then if you're admitted, go to the admitted school weekends, talk to alums, talk to current students, talk to staff members, and get a feel for, do those things check out? And then when you think about those criteria and the sort of the evaluation from school to school, not all those are equal. Like, listen, it's a bright sunny day here in Durham, North Carolina. My family lives in Michigan, some great schools in the Midwest. It happens to be snowing in the Midwest right now. Weather is important, but it's not everything, right? So maybe weather is nowhere near as important as maybe quality of faculty or, the way that you just felt when you visited. Were you welcome? Was it not just about fitting in? Was it about belonging? Could you bring your authentic self, your unique 25 random things? How do those belong in a place? And then what you start to find is that both your head, the numbers, and your gut will align. You either start fudging the numbers or you start moving in that direction. You'll find the place that's right for you. And so you look at all those things, all the intangibles. It could be financial aid packages. It could be scholarship. It could be, the way that you were treated on a visit. It could be anything. Whatever it is, once you align at that, you'll know because you have the data, you have the story. And then I love that Jen said this about her partner, about her husband. I would also recommend going to your board of trustees, the people in your lives that really, really know you, and talking about it. You're the head of that board, so you got to eventually make that decision. But they will know based on how excited or not you are as you talk about the different places at different stages, really where your heart aligns. And so, I hope for you that Fuqua is in that consideration set, but you owe it to yourself to find the right place for you.
Really good advice. Jen, I wonder if you can transport yourself back 2 years when you were in this position of deciding where to go and offer advice from that experience to current applicants. What would you say?
Yeah, sure. And I think Steve really nailed a lot of it there on the head. But I would say that I think that there's a lot of sort of pressure, and I don't want to negate the fact that I think sometimes rankings take a lot of precedent in decisions. And I would almost say that I personally think that culture supersedes that. Because in the end, it's a heavy investment to go in for these 2 years. And if your own personal goals, if your own personality even doesn't align with that school's culture, then are you really going to truly enjoy it? So really sort of, I suppose the more bird's eye view answer that I'm trying to say is take the time to understand the school's culture, speak to students, speak to alumni, and really try to get them to real talk, and be candid about what their experience was before, during, and after. Because I think that would be very valuable.
Terrific. Well, Steve, if someone wants to follow up and find out more about the program, of course, you've got a great website with a lot of information, and people should scour it for every little detail, including, as Jen says, the employment report. But who else should they talk to, reach out to on your admissions team?
Yeah, we have the best admissions team in the world. You can find their contact information online. I used to work in admissions, so I can say that with credibility. Our admissions team is amazing. Sherry is the best dean in the world. No offense to other deans that are out there.
You have a superstar in charge of that group.
She's incredible. And so you can really reach out to anyone. My email address, I may regret giving this out, is spm10@duke.edu, but I'm happy. I've had that email address for over 20 years. I'm happy to try and get you to the right person. We want you to do, as Jen said, to find out, make sure that fit is not just for your own benefit, but it's for ours too. We want people that want to be part of Team Fuqua, that want to be part of something bigger than themselves, that want to elevate the experience of others. And so we have just as much of an interest in getting you to the finish line as you do as well. And so, you can email me, you can email, anyone on our admissions team, and you'll get to where you need to be. I would recommend, if possible, because it's up and running again, incredible campus visit program here. Come attend a class. Go to a Fuqua Friday. Really, I think the real talk is great advice. Get out of that kind of name tag, I'm a prospective student, you're ask the real tough questions. What do you not like about Fuqua? Because we're not perfect, right? What are the things that you don't like? And really, like Jen said, get to that real talk and find out if that fit is there.
I love that. My favorite question to ask students is, if you were dean, what would you do to change the school for the better? And that's the best way to get the real nitty gritty,
I keep Jen here for 10 more years.
Hey, Steve, Jen, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Jen, good luck to you at Amazon. I'm sure you're going to be a big star there. And Steve, fantastic. Good to meet you. For all of you out there, this is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for watching.
Let's go, Duke.